This is what Forsaken looked like on Christmas Day of 2024, the day of the game's release. Through hundreds upon hundreds of changes this game has gone through, here we are back on December 25th, 2024. This video jumps around the timeline to decipher the top 5 most overpowered characters in Forsaken's entire history. I will break down metas, balance changes, all to crack the code of which 5 eras of the game have had the absolute best of the best survivors in Forsaken's history. Special thanks to Rico Dubs for helping me patch this list together, and especially the Forsaken developer Kaiser for supplying me with the 2024 version of Forsaken to get the very recordings you will see in this video, along with some help on the list. If you enjoy this type of content, remember to subscribe to the channel and possibly even join my Discord server. I would greatly appreciate it. But anyways, let's get into the top 5 most overpowered, game-breaking survivors in Forsaken's history so far. Number 5 is April 2025 2-Time. If you know, you know. This date is the infamous 2-Time rework, changing the weak, defenseless, comically underpowered survivalist 2-Time into a horrifically overpowered stabbing maniac sentinel. This rework was absolutely unbelievable for how extreme this previously comically bad character became. Nobody expected what beast of a survivor was lying in this character, but wait, let's go back. 2-Time started off as a survivalist upon the game's release, known for being a laughable 1 star in difficulty and being the only character without abilities. The gimmick was that when they were killed, they actually weren't, and would transform into a second life who could also do nothing. They were the purest survivalist in the game, and their only reason for living was to run from the killer and stall for virtually as much time as humanly possible. 2-Time was bad, very bad actually. From game release to the rework in 2024, 2-Time went on to receive one balance change, which was the addition of a forced second life upon LMS. For the first 4 months of the game, this was by far the least amount a survivor had been messed with in terms of balancing and changing. The meta shifted so much, Dusakar and Taff released, 50 Shaletsky skins were added, and yet nothing. 2-Time was a survivalist bound to die with nothing to do with the character. April 26th, 2025, the 2-Time rework came out, and I'm gonna be honest, calling this a rework is an understatement. They didn't just get an ability or two, maybe a new gimmick, possibly a weapon, stat changes, or just changed classes in terms of a survivor. No, they got all 5 of those. No abilities, no worries. Here's 3 new ones. By the way, you can now stab the killer with this shiny new dagger of yours, sneaking up on them with their basically completely undetectable ability called Crouch, or just doing this whack-ass tech called Trick Stabbing Stuns for the killer for 4 seconds. Oh, you can also heal 20 health every time you do that. Oh, it also gives you this cool little substance called Ablation. Filled that up? Cool, you can pick where you respawn using Ritual. Let's do some investigating into just what exactly this version of 2-Time had to offer. 2-Time had a 4-second stun that healed 10 health from an unmissable front stab and 20 health from the stunning backstabs. They of course also got a respawn after just a few stabs were down, a really short dagger cooldown, especially in comparison to Shaletsky's 40 seconds of a cooldown. There were just 0 stacking nerfs, so it was a genuine strategy to fill the lobby with 2-Times, and only the killer would occasionally be killed himself. There were some insane, unintentional gimmicks that made 2-Time even better as well, such as stabbing killer minions also giving you health back. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but with the knowledge that you could potentially gain a free 20 HP from literally stabbing a minion is insane, also still considering the short cooldown. And of course, we got trick stabs. We all know what these are. We all have a love-hate relationship of getting to walk backwards into a killer by surprise, do nothing that relates to you being behind them, and get a free backstab. This tech is so insanely popular nowadays it isn't even funny, but back then it was notably just not well known. Trick stabbing was barely discovered, documented, and especially utilized until the game moved to May or June, where 2-Time still thrived greatly. Like I said, this video also considers the meta that these characters were in to determine their placement. If trick stabs were more popular than they are today, then we definitely would have seen 2-Time get higher than number 5. 2-Time's reign ends on May 14th, 2025, when the first official nerfs dropped for this character. Some light stacking nerfs were added to the front stabs along with some other patches and fixing the bug with minions. But this arguably wasn't enough. Another month later, on June 13th, 2025, 2-Time received a harsher set of nerfs, toning the backstab stun duration down 0.5 seconds and nerfing front stabs. This lies is the most recent major nerf to 2-time until making this video, but rumor has it that this survivor is still creeping up as arguably top 3 survivors in the game, as trick subs are still absolutely dominating the meta, and we may just see another huge nerf coming very soon. Number 4 is December 2024 Builderman. See, Builderman has always been known for being notably powerful, especially considering his extremely powerful sentry. Like 2-time, he actually has had very few balance changes for the first 3 months of the game release, only 2 extremely minor ones in fact. But I said December 2024, indicating that Builderman was overpowered on release? Not exactly. See, I'm going to twist the rules of this video just a little bit and send us even further back in time. Yes, before the game's official release. Welcome to pre-alpha Forsaken. This is during the weeks up to the game release and possibly even further back, where there were sparse public beta tests technically making this character bouncing public to the point where it's allowed in this video. So what places this version of Builderman in number 4? Well, 2 sentries. No ifs, ands, or buts. Well, there actually is one because Builderman had 80 health instead of 90 at this point in time, but still, 2 sentries with the same physics, debuffs, and punishment inflicted onto killers is absolutely overpowered. The sentry is still considered absolutely busted even in today's meta, making this version of Builderman absolutely insane. Did I mention there wasn't even code added to the game to prevent these from being built, say, inside walls, floating in inconvenient spots? Yeah, Builderman was an absolute menace. His 80 health and complete vulnerability didn't make him powerful in the same way 2-time was, where you could just play the character and be annoying. In this meta, you would be targeted number 1, no doubt about it. But either way, there's no argument that could wriggle you out of how insanely overpowered 2 sentries per Builderman is, giving him the number 4 spot. Number 3 is July 2025 1x. The first thing you would think when seeing this placement is, hey, isn't that like incredibly recent? Well, you'd sure be right. Let's jump all the way from the pre-alpha days of Forsaken to summer of 2025. The long-awaited Noli update is finally here with a new killer, a ton of new content, and holy lord, that is a lot of 1x skins. Well, surely this doesn't prompt to anything like an upsurge in 1x, right? After all, a new killer just released, everyone's gonna play Noli, right? Oh, okay. Oh my god, everyone is playing 1x. Okay, so what's the rest of the update have to say? Those 1x buffs? What happens when the wildest designed killer with seemingly unstoppable projectiles gets a dozen new skins, an entire row of buffs, in the largest Forsaken update in history? Absolute hell breaks loose, that's for sure. July 2025 1x, also known as the Noli Update 1x, reworked this already striking killer into an absolute beast. Where the hell do I even start? We know how insane of a killer 1x is, 2 short cooldown projectiles along with gimmicks giving him constant speed. When it comes to skill ceilings and overall design, 1x is by far the best killer and the only one to appear on this list. 1x got probably the best buffs possible for the Noli update, less to end lag. End lag is the amount of time you can't move after using an ability, so in 1x's case, his projectiles. The end lag on both projectiles got an insane nerf, giving 1x so much less punishment on missing an entanglement and the movement after mass infection being insanely fast. Unstable Eye was also changed to be better as a tracking ability and less about getting extra speed, and Rejuvenate the Rotten got a giant nerf, but with the end lag buffs, that makes that all irrelevant. This version of 1x is absolutely terrifying for how quick this killer's movement was. If a player had at least a decent aim, you could never catch a break from a July 1x. This killer had also received over a dozen new skins in this update, completely out of nowhere. One being arguably the best skin in the whole game, Hacklord, and Diva having unique chase and LMS. It's as the devs wanted to make 1x the biggest killer. Hell, he was played more than Noli himself despite being the hyped up face of the update. Which is insane. 1x then proceeded to get their end lag reverted back during the writing of this video, making July 2025 1x the most powerful version of not just 1x, but any killer in this game's history so far. Number 2 is December 2024 Chance. Let's go back in time. Way back in time. Back to December once again. No, not anything crazy like pre-alpha, game release on Christmas Day. Chance was an absolute powerhouse. These top two spots are soaring way above the three characters we've talked about so far. These top two being considered beyond game breaking and transforming Forsaken. Forsaken would undoubtedly be an absolute train wreck if balancing like this existed today, and the December 2024 Chance proves that correct. What could this guy do? Well, why not check myself? One of the lead developers, Kaiser, let me jump into an old version of Forsaken to truly get a feel for the survivor myself. And oh my god, Chance is so much worse than I thought. First of all, the range for the gun is around 35 studs longer. That's like getting close to double the length. You could shoot from such an insane length of a map away, and the killer has no reason to expect a gunshot from that far away is approaching. The knockback is way higher too, along with doing a whopping 60 damage. With enough chances in the lobby, this insane damage for a ranged attack makes it literally viable to kill the killer at the time. What perfectly supplements this idea? The fact that the stun from his gunshot is linearly connected to how far you are from the killer. If you shoot a killer point blank up close, they will get a full stun of what today is 3.5 seconds, and from far away, 1.5 seconds. During this era of Forsaken, that minimum stun time was 2.5 seconds, and the max 6 seconds. This is 2.5 seconds longer than the absolute longest possible stun in modern day Forsaken, the time where the developers or players couldn't grasp how insanely long of a stun this was. This stun was so long, it paired perfectly with the fact that combined with the knockback the killer was thrown so far back in the chase, you would have your gunshot back by the time they caught up to you. This basically means that landing a close-up gunshot extended the chase by around 40 seconds, assuming the killer plays flawlessly. Take into perspective how unbelievably broken that is. You can make the argument that each killer is different, but it's notable that by far the two most played killers at the time were none other than Jason and Cool Kid, who were by far the most susceptible to this gimmick. Hold on, I missed something out on something crucial. So Forsaken has some looping issues back in the day. The house in New York's, the crater in Planet Voss, yeah, it was a huge issue, especially with the fact that Chance and Shiletsky were in their peaks. So what is the absolute only way that killers can handle looping? Well, they have 110 stamina, while the survivors only have 100. In a long-term case, this makes a huge difference and defines what makes up the killers to have an actual better chance of winning rounds. Unfortunately for a killer's case, Chance managed to bypass this too, because you could reroll your stamina at the time too. Seriously, anywhere from 70 to 109. You're probably immediately thinking, psh, this is horrible. Now you could start with 20 less stamina than regular and then immediately get demolished. Well, yes, that's partially true. First, this was the time where you could start with above 100 health and stamina without the need to reroll. This isn't exactly relevant, but I thought I'd point that out. Chance is a sentinel. Sentinels are supposed to stun the killer and protect others. This singular balance change did not support that theory one bit. The idea of having even 105 stamina or above is absolutely insane. Closing the gap between the killer and survivor's stamina difference absolutely breaks Forsaken, dismantling the single benefit killers have in an attempt to win. So think of having up to 109 stamina in the era of Forsaken where looping was absolutely busted. And what does that quote unquote sentinel become? An absolute terrified hider who sits in the corner and rerolls the entire game. Instead of using this notably overpowered gun, the idea of having more than enough stamina to drain the killer of their only buff over survivors is all it takes to absolutely destroy the sentinel's character. This version of Chance worked for himself, hardly for others. All you cared about is rerolling yourself to enough stamina to basically guarantee you won't die later. So, as overpowered as this version of Chance is, he was also notably a horribly designed sentinel, or just a character in general. So in conclusion, Chance was insane, absolutely broken of a survivor, but he was so poorly designed for being good. The motivation to get high stamina is such an opportunity you can't pass up. It destroyed this character in the process. Even back then, it was common knowledge that it is incredibly hard to win with even just, say, 95 stamina. Rerolling wasn't an option, it was the time-wasting necessity you had to do every game. But either way, the idea of making the killer literally not able to win against you, combined with by far the best weapon and stun in Forsaken's history, is what puts the December 2024 version of Chance at number 2. Number 1 is February 2025 Dusakar. This was the turning point of Forsaken, where it arguably graduated from its alpha days. February 2021st, 2025, a couple months after the game's release, the first new character had dropped, Dusakar. This was still early enough in the game's lifespan where balancing wasn't anywhere near perfect, and the devs needed to try to make a new character who can incorporate into the game well and fit with the other 12 characters. Well, to say the least, we all probably know how that went. Dusakar released late at night on February 21st, and quite frankly, not much was known about what the survivor would be like going to release. Upon the evening of this Friday night though, the last thing we expected is to come face to face with the most overpowered survivor in Forsaken history, ever. This character was so much more complex than any other survivor in the game so far. He had so many gimmicks that were severely underlooked during testing, and this Friday night is infamously known for being an actual train wreck in Forsaken. Dusakar had 100 HP, the most of any support character, 2 abilities with incredibly short cooldowns that can almost fully stop a survivor from taking damage from an absolutely diabolical range. This ability had realistically 0 stacking nerfs, which was such an insane time stall. It was never expected that filling a server to the brim with a support character could ever be optimal, but good lord was Dusakar stacking powerful. Whoever you would be chasing would literally have an infinite supply of overheal from plasma beams, spawn protection, and 100 HP, and you literally couldn't stop the player who was protecting them due to an unbelievable range. Both abilities were agonizingly spammable, and once people realized how overpowered Dusakar stacking was, there was no reason to play Builderman or Elliot when Dusakar was by far the most optimal time waster for the killers. Not to mention the absolutely disgusting money farm that came out of this. When players realized you can money farm from plasma beam spamming and having everyone line up, people reached Dusakar milestone 4 in literal hours. Thousands upon thousands of points were being farmed. This night was an absolute mess for Forsaken. So it was no surprise to see the developers swoop in with an emergency Dusakar nerf, also notably the largest nerf a character has received in Forsaken's history so far, and completely destroyed the survivor in the process. As needed, these nerfs were literally removing 10 HP from Dusakar, completely got rid of the overheal, doubled down on the stacking nerfs, and completely wiped out Spawn Protection's biggest gimmick of saving survivors from major damage, such as gash and wound. This nerf was devastating, morphing Dusakar from an unstoppable stackable powerhouse to a suboptimal occasional time staller. Since then, Dusakar has received a well-needed rework in the Noli update, cementing his spot today as a free-moving support character who provides plasma beam and spawn protection in only the more dire situations instead of being a time staller. Dusakar is in a completely different world now, and we're guaranteed to never go back to the train wreck of the survivor they were back in February. And that's the end of this video. Hope you all liked the new editing and writing style, and if you have any objections to my choices in the comments, go ahead and let me know. Oh, and huge thanks to Xvoid, August End, and CypherCats for supporting the channel through memberships. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day.